Positive Noise 1982 release, Change of Heart. I still have the vinyl. Um, Positive Noise were a Scottish post-punk new wave band from 1979 to 1985. The band released 3 albums and several singles throughout their short career. Underappreciated during their time, not much has been written or said about Positive Noise. We hope to in some way rectify that situation today. Joining me is Les Gaff, one of the original members. Les, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are you ready to tell the story?
Yeah. And apologies for other members of the band, but they're going through like what happened 3 or 4 years ago. They're elderly parents and they've got issues going on. Yeah, but I still see them. So I've got plans that say I'll come to that later on. Hopefully, you could have touched on something there about being forgotten, but it's partly because all the stuff's still in vinyl. We don't have Spotify or anything like that. So yeah, so I was I've dug out a lot of memorabilia, which I was the only person in the band that kept things. So I can show you some of them. So do you want to know how we started? And
yes. Let's go back to the beginning. How you guys came together. Were you in any other bands before Positive Noise?
Well, funnily enough, I wasn't in any bands before, but I'd been learning drums. Been looking to join a band. So I actually auditioned for a Glasgow band called the Dream Boys. If you ever remember them, but Peter Capaldi, who became Doctor Who and kind of also the actor in the thick of it, he was the singer. And Craig Ferguson was the drummer. He sacked him the night before. So I was only about 15 then, and he eventually rejoined them. And then my current band, Restricted Code, I nearly joined them, but I never did any transport. So I picked up one of the magazines I have, which is called 20p, and it's issue number 32, is a fanzine.
Oh, wow.
Remember fanzines?
Yes, fanzines, yes.
This features a Gang of 4, Test Manoeuvres, Specials, Madness Selector, and Positive Noise.
Wow.
So we released a tape that had some altered images, Aztec camera. People on it. That's one of the only pieces of memorabilia I don't have is that tape. We just recorded bands in rehearsal and put a tape out. So I had a wee read of the interview in there. So we actually formed in July 20th, 1979.
Okay.
It was myself and Ross Middleton. So I'd been at school with Fraser in the band, and introduced me to his brother, who found out I had a drum kit. And I took the drum kit to their house, and me and Ross just played Clash songs and things like that. Then persuaded Fraser to get a bass, which he did. Within a few months, we were playing gigs in Glasgow. They were like small bars, and met the bands The Alleged and Restricted Code. To know them, and we made Second City Static. And by that time, the other brother in the band, it's like the Osmonds, Graham had joined on keyboards, which is one wee keyboard.
Was Static Scottish label, right?
Yeah, we formed by ourselves in Glasgow. Static with a K, Static Records. So and Glasgow had been a bit of a debate about Glasgow or Birmingham being the second city in Britain. It was a very industrial city in the Empire, the days of the Empire. So that was kind of where the title came from, Second City Static. And the 3 bands put in money and made it together. Recorded that. So
yes, and the Chameleons released their first 2 on Static.
Yeah. So what happened was when so after about a year in the band, we started playing bigger gigs, getting lots of support and a lot of record company interest. The guy from Virgin Records at the time, Laurie Dunn, approached us. We'd signed to Virgin Publishing, but the idea was that if we could keep the Static name, Static Records would be in the independent charts more and be more of So he basically he bought the other bands out and started Static Records from offices in London. So I think he put out records with Dead Kennedys, the Chameleons. I think Sound, Tom Robinson. There's loads of records in there that label did. That's what that really came from. We still own it. So it came from our own inspiration happening in Glasgow, and Laurie took over the running of it.
What were some of the influences that different members of the band brought to the band? What kind of music were they into?
Well, I'd kind of grew up really with punk records, and that's when me and Ross's interest lay. Ross was a lot older than us, so he had probably a lot more knowledge of kind of maybe rock stuff. It was essentially me, Ross, myself, Ross, and Fraser. It was the Clash, it was the Jam, it was Joy Division. Joy Division really became a dating magazine. Band Teardrop Explodes, those kind of bands, and go and see all these bands. So that was the thing. Graham had more of a background in like keyboard type bands or prog rock kind of bands as well.
Okay.
But as we moved away from the first album after Ross left, it became more electronic music was really big. Whereas we had a lot, in the early days, we knew about Kraftwerk and all that kind of German scene, but essentially started the band, we were a punk, a DIY post-punk Glasgow band, and there was a lot of, Glasgow at that time was a hive of bands. It was like, I've really had lots of heavy metal bands, and then there was just explosion of bands in that kind of indie scene. So the Orange Juice was obviously a really big one. Played a few gigs with them. Aztec Camera with the old postcard scene. We're very close friends with the Simple Minds. We met the Simple Minds quite early on in their career. Supported them a few times. So I still see Brian, even the first drummer. I see him at a yoga class. So they were at Derek Ford. They were very helpful, and played a lot of supports with them. So that would be that. Ross would probably had more of an electronic influence as well, from the Kraftwerk.
Okay. What about Joseph K?
Yeah, well, they were postcard as well, I think. So they were very. We never ever played any gigs with them, but they were. I wouldn't say they were that dissimilar from ourselves, and they'd be kind of Joseph K and the Fire Engines would be.
Yes.
I would kind of say that.
Yeah.
Not dissimilar, and my current band was to go. They toured with the Fire Engines. I met my wife at a Fire Engines gig.
Really?
Yeah. So the Fire Engines gig at the time was half an hour tuning up. So Joseph K, Aztec Camera, and was just on the postcard side.
Yes.
The guy that started a lot of it was Bobby Bluebell, the guy that was in a band called the Bluebells. He had.
Oh yeah, love the Bluebell.
Alan London. So I remember hearing all the Bluebell tapes from them, and the Orange Juice tapes from him. So there was so much going on at that time. And you'd altered images as well, who were less poppy when they started out. So yeah, Joseph K were brilliant. I've still got some of their records.
What would you contribute to or attribute to the blossoming of all the bands at that time, in and around Glasgow?
But I think there was a couple of things would be the punk explosion and young people picking up guitars, right, from 77, 78. People was starting to be the Hellfire Club in Glasgow was a rehearsal place that people could go to. It was quite well known. So bands like Human Heels, Sophisticated Boom Boom, there was loads of bands coming. So it started to be rehearsal space, and then we started to get gigs. There was a club called the Mars Bar in Glasgow, which was very, very important, I think. So a lot of bands played there, but we wouldn't really get to play pubs where the traditional kind of heavy metal or the kind of Lynyrd Skynyrd type music. So, and then John Peel really picked up on it as well. The God genius, godlike genius of John Peel. So he picked up in a lot of the bands as well, and were on the radio. You know.
He gave a lot of bands their start. He really
Yeah.
did.
Yeah, certainly gave us a big start.
And he had great taste too.
Yeah.
What about the chemistry with all the members? You guys get along pretty well and work
well. I've been a social worker now for 35 years. And, I know a lot about sibling rivalry now. So three brothers in the band. So it was all fine until about Ross was a bit of an interesting character. As far as I'm aware, he's still around. I've not seen him for years, and his family haven't seen him. The last sighting of Ross was that I know of was by Alan McGee in Primal Scream, who saw him several years ago in Paris.
Wow.
I told him to meet him the next day, and he didn't turn up. So my last contact was about 7 years ago in an email. So Ross was a bit like he's always on. He done one thing, he was always on the next thing. So everything was going really well. Album came out, touring, and then I think he just wanted to do more by himself. With the recording of Positive Negative, there was a bit of a fallout around about then. He left and formed the process after that with Gary Barnacle, who'd been our saxophone player. So at that point,
right.
But all kind of healed eventually. But it was a bit fraught, bit of a kind of, this was the record Mirror. So it's What
right.
Row My Love. So this was before the release of Change of Heart.
Yes, the infamous picture, yes.
So the stuff Ross went on to make, well, Pleasure Process was London. I'm really amazed at them and stuff. So and then latterly, after Change of Heart, we did a summer tour with Hoya Wilcox, and then we did some gigs like Esh Mode and Flock of Seagulls. We did a few gigs like that and toured Germany and France, some things there. And then the recording of the third album, or the singles before that, had demos on them. And then the producer didn't want to have a drummer. And then the stuff that so I think like a lot of friends were drummers. There was a real technological challenge for drummers in the 80s because of the Linn drum that came along.
Right.
So I left about summer of '83. So I didn't play in the last album.
Right.
So I left then and formed a band called Rhythm System, and also another band called the Henry Brothers. Henry Brothers some good success locally. But I've just always played because people always ask me to play and join bands. So that's kind of how I keep playing. And so the chemistry musically was good. And when Russell joined, Russell guitar point, he joined probably mid-80s. And we rehearsed a lot in London and with a lot of support slots, and we got really into the kind of disco style and stuff, and that kind of groove was coming in. So big regret is some of the stuff Ross was recording with us or writing with us before he left never really took fruition, and some of it was very good. Quite James Brown, really funky as well.
Right.
You know?
I was going to say funky.
Yeah, I can hear the songs in my head, but and I've got tapes of stuff. I've got tapes of gigs and stuff that I'm going to try and get the old cassette tapes. I'm going to try and get them put online on YouTube and stuff. So I have a bit of time to do that now. So yeah, but the chemist was okay there. But then by mid '81, it was kind of starting to Ross was quite hard to manage, really in terms of doing his own thing or You know, he was just kind of too mercurial, really. So just kind of changeable, but he also just wanted to kind of be on the next thing he was doing. So, so we had a great relationship with them. It just kind of fell apart. And then the next stage was us probably going a bit more commercial. If you look at how the thing came, but we did suit Russell's vocals for Change of Heart, and we got a good reception, and Fire picked up on it and stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of interest, but the problem for us now is none of the stuff's on Spotify or that kind of thing. So the tapes are in Australia, you know, all the thing. But my argument with the band is that you don't need, you can just put them out on.
Right.
You would have done that, you know.
I think a lot of fans have wondered why you know, your material hasn't been released on CD.
Yeah.
I know Cherry Red, who releases a lot of old stuff, you know, or re-releases. I sent them a letter before,
right,
or an email, and that was one of the bands. There were several bands that I mentioned, like, you know, what's going on, why not, you know,
right,
as their back material, you know, catalog, and didn't get an answer on that one. But
I got contact from forwarded by them. Ali Mackenzie, who was the Cuban Heels, drummer at Glasgow.
Okay.
I know really his dad worked beside my dad, but he sent me an email saying Cherry Red asked about us, and also had another guy from Italy contact as well. I would just like to have something where, like, I'm on the running machine, you know, and the band comes on my Spotify playlist. Oh, I forgot all about them. I think that's what we need. And the one recently, Steve Lamack from Radio 6 had a Franz Ferdinand interview. And on that, he asked him, Steve Lamack's a big voice fan, he still plays Passion and Charm and all Appeal sessions and stuff. So he asked Franz Ferdinand, for a Glasgow band, had they heard the Positive Noise because they sound a bit like them, and he does sound a bit like Ross, the first singer. And they'd never heard of us. So I think it's just because we've not won all the YouTube stuff's there. There's a lot of YouTube stuff going on, you know. But I think it's the actual not on the Spotify and that.
Right. Spotify. I have a YouTube channel, and I have like 560 songs that I've uploaded. It's always the obscured ones, you know, that are not there. Yeah. And this is one that I put up there. It's from this single, and it's End in Tears. That was like one of my first favorite tracks.
Right.
The B-side. Yeah, the B-side. Love the keyboard in that. You know, it's the moodiness of it. Yeah. Yeah,
it's a terrible picture of us on that.
Yeah,
there's a picture of us, but it's a terrible picture of the back.
I know.
Got my best.
Yeah.
So that album, it kind of started. We started it with one producer. So a lot of the drums, most of the songs are one drum, so we had to program them. And some of the songs are Nick Loney, I think, who when it did because he was kind of more famous for his drum bits. So the kind of the live drums on it are quite good, and the overdubs are good. But overall, it's a bit disappointed with the lack of sales and stuff. I thought that, and we had a big tour, big support tour, and we played a lot of bands, similar bands, and we thought maybe so. A bit disappointed sales-wise, but I think it's kind of grown on a lot of people. Like yourself, when you see things on YouTube, the amount of hit songs, you think, well, I didn't think it was one of our best to get, you know. So, that's interesting. And the song on it, Inhibitions, on it was another song that was actually originally one of Ross's songs. We could have changed around a bit, but that I've got that on a live tape with Ross in the band singing, and it was based on one of the G.J. Ballard books, but I think it was At the Exhibition. It was called At the Exhibition. Was the actual name of the song, and then she obviously changed it to Inhibitions. But yeah, and that was really underrated. That what like that one.
What about the working in the recording studios? How did the recording process go? Was it? Did you enjoy that?
For a drummer, it's a high pressure situation. But the first album, we were trying to get a particular sound, and the cymbals would be cardboard and they'd overdub them later. I found that. The second album was a lot of drum programming. So yeah, I found it quite a pressurised personally. But I think looking back, we could have been a lot more professional about it. Maybe practiced a lot more, and yeah, I think we could have done. Well, I think we all think if we did a producer that pushed us more, not a top producer, but a producer who had just wanted to take us to the next level. I think if you see some bands of that era, or something like ABC or Human League, like that, taking you to that level, getting more out of you.
Going back, there was a big difference.
Yeah,
they picked this up too, and Ghosts is also one of my favorite tracks. I think your earlier stuff seemed to have more of a. You mentioned Joy Division.
Yeah.
A darker side. Yeah.
It was a big influence.
Yes.
In the band magazine as well. My daughter's actually got every passion tattooed across her chest there.
Is that right?
a brilliant tattoo, yeah. So that gets played quite a lot on Radio 6, and played last week on the programme. So in the field sessions. So that was really my first experience in the studio. And people talk about the Give Me Passion drum part, how great it is. And I don't know how I played it. I don't know how it was just like the energy from it is same with Charm. So yeah, it was very raw. Right. I was 19, 20, at that time. I was 61 now, so yeah. So that's the energy is something else. That's when you listen. That's the first thing that jumped out at me is that's the power and the energy of the playing. But not couldn't care less. But it's like this is us, Like the Skids were a bit like that. I think like the Skids, Scottish band, say that kind of power. Yeah, so I'm quite proud of those ones. Another one, End of a Dream, I quite like when that B-side is.
Yeah. Did you? I was going to ask you about gigs at that time period. Any real memorable gigs that you played? Any favorites?
Favorite ones. One of the ones in Glasgow where you couldn't charge money for to get in to see bands. It was a bylaw, so pubs you didn't. So there was just outside Glasgow. There was a pub basically called the Bungalow Bar, and so it was like a small house in the middle of a roundabout. It's now a sushi restaurant or something, but so you get bands like Echo the Bunnymen, Teardrop Explodes, Skids. So I once had saw the Skids there at a secret gig. So that was a brilliant gig to play. It's so small and they were really memorable. And one in particular at Glasgow Art School, Edinburgh Art School. We got signed after that gig. That was a gig we got signed, but just been a great one. Then one of the ones that is really memorable is supporting New Order. New Order, which maybe the first or second gig after Ian Curtis died. So we'd been promised the support to Joy Division in Glasgow, and called to say Ian Curtis had passed away. They came back through the word and gave us the night there was a dance hall in Glasgow we played in the round circular, and that was there's some pictures of that which so you can get them on internet. Some pictures are absolutely amazing. So that was an amazing gig, and a couple with Simple Minds, supporting Simple Minds a couple of times. Yeah, first tour playing Glasgow Apollo, which is a Clash t-shirt, Glasgow.
Oh yeah.
So playing, but that's where I used to go and see bands there from the age of 13, 14. So just about everybody. So that was a real honour to play there.
Yeah, there were lots of bands touring at that time, I guess. I mean,
Mhm.
I'm very envious of you in the UK. And we got a few of those. I mean, Echo and the Bunny Man, of course, came here, New Order, Simple
Yeah.
Mind, but not some of the, a little more obscure bands that I wish, would, or I wish I could. Yeah. But you never toured or came to the US, did you?
We were supposed to go under there was a rough trade kind of program. We were supposed to do there was a festival in Leeds, which was quite famous festival in Leeds. Some of the V festival. There's books written about stuff. There was somebody really famous met somebody there and formed a band. There was a kind of rough trade connection with some records, compilations out, and the plan was to go there and do this gig in Leeds and Berlin and stuff, and but Ross had left at that point, so that didn't happen. So, big regret,
Yep. When he left to form Leisure Process.
Leisure Process. Yeah.
What did the rest of you guys? You just kind of regrouped at that time, or what did you think at that time?
We were I think we were a bit floored. I met my wife at that time, so as well. So I was thinking about other things as well, but kind of we had some songs, and we wrote some songs, and a record company said we'll go and demo them and see where we are after that. So they really liked the songs and continued the record deal. So I think there was 4 songs I think we wrote, and then we sent the demo to them, and they came back and said they loved it. So I think Feel the Fear would be one of them.
Okay.
I don't know the other ones. Yeah, I think we released Positive Noise with Russell on the vocal. Positive Negative with Russell on the vocal. So that summer 81, 82 maybe. But there was 3 or 4 songs we recorded in the studio in Glasgow and sent them to Laurie Dunn, and they loved them, and they went down and recorded the album maybe the start of 82, around about, or the end of 81. So.
Yeah. The writing process, was that like a group effort pretty much, or were there primary writers? And
pretty much the early days, Ross would come up with the lyric for a cause first, but we'd all kind of contribute. And I think latterly it was a bit of a kind of, I think like the writing charm, I remember just Fraser kind of starting the bass line, and I was kind of, I started playing, then Ross just came up with a lyric, Change of Heart was a bit like that song. And so Fraser'd been doing a lot of bass lessons, and his bass playing really improved, and so a lot of stuff was bass. He came up with quite a lot of stuff then, that like Feel the Fear and stuff like that.
Yeah. Did any of the members were they influenced by a certain ratio? I heard that we mentioned the funkiness.
Yeah. Yep. So I remember sitting in Paul Morley's house in London, and playing the ABC first single, Tears Are Not Enough, which I loved. And then he played the certain ratio, Shack Up, which we used to have an alarm clock. It sounded there like that. I mean, but so that would be, me and Ross Fraser would be the ones that were into kind of the independent stuff, and all my records I'm giving to my daughter's boyfriend. He loves vinyl. He's into thrash metal, whatever they're called. These bands get a new name every week. But I was giving them a lot. Some of the singles you forget you have from that, all the adverts and all the stuff, and the factory records, like, a certain ratio are adored, So that would be me, Ross, and Fraser. The first the kind of initial bit about that, and Russell kind of brought. He liked the Gang of Four and kind of thing, so and maybe had much more, maybe more of a rock kind of background as well. Yeah, and I used to steal all my sister's records. My sister was a big Philadelphia Motown fan,
Oh yeah.
and disco stuff. So my style was, I think looking back, a lot of my drum style, they're still playing out, comes from a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I really get into that in the 80s, and particularly in Glasgow, there was a club called Maestros, where it was great music. And there was a book launch a few weeks ago on that, and but some of the great Glasgow bands played. But that's where everybody met on the weekend. All your Glasgow hierarchy of indie music.
Yeah, that Philly sound. Oh man, yeah.
I know. My sister had all those records.
Yeah,
I'd go in and steal them. When she
that
was out and play them.
that orchestrated. Oh man.
Yeah.
That's some good stuff there. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love the disco stuff. Not. I mean, yeah. The certain ratio were brilliant. Loved them.
What did you listen to like growing up? What kind of music?
Well, I first started. It was so obviously chart music, and that's what got me in drums. So be your Bowie, your Bolan, Matt Bolan. I loved a lot of pop at the time, but then probably hit about 14, 15. Main friends at school. The television were a huge band for me. A lot television Talking Heads were. I think one of my friends, Stephen, who was at school, he lived in Russia. He's in Brighton now, and he's going to come up for the gig. But we used to just bunk off school and go to record shops and hang out at record shops, and but we like kind of. So that time, so all the second-hand albums be like Uriah Heep and Bebop Deluxe and Black Sabbath, and then we was kind of get the newer stuff. There was an American album called New Wave, which was a kind of a new wave sampler, and there was a lot of great American bands on that. But I was listening to like Wire.
Wire, yeah.
Ross was a huge fan of Teardrop Explodes. He did really great taste in some of the stuff he came out with. But yeah, all those indie singles, the undertones and stuff. They just 3-minute pop songs of absolute gold. Yeah.
There was a local record store here called VVV Records, and that's where I really got introduced to the new wave in the early 80s. And in fact, that single that I showed was one I would go in and buy 45s, singles.
Right. Yeah.
And it just from the look of it, a lot of times just the way it looked. And that was my first introduction to positive noise.
Wow.
Was it?
Wow.
But yeah, I still have some of the 45s. Yeah. So.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, but that's explain that, because we have record store day here, and I explain that to my daughter's boyfriend, who and I just hang around record shops. That's where you spent your days. So and in Glasgow, around about 79, there was a kind of mod explosion. There was a lot of trouble between punks and mods in Glasgow. Just was a bit mad, but that doing it yourself, putting the singles out was the follow up of punk. So they talk about post punk, but the follow up for that was going to themselves. Maybe just come out of school, or they'd maybe been into music, they'd learned the guitar, and that was a great movement. Didn't cost you much. I think I'm reading there it was £500 for us to do the copies of Second City Static. So,
like you said, DIY attitude,
yeah. The funny one is the New Order situation with Blue. Was it Blue Monday? One of their songs was a big hit, but the sleeve actually cost more to make than the record. So they actually lost money on that.
Really?
Yeah.
That's that's really something. I remember when Blue Monday came out. Yeah, that was like, it was so different. It was like,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
the,
I remember crying because used to lie in bed at night listening to John Peel. That would be, it's just, you know. And then after John Peel would be an Irish station you'd listen to. Play stuff, but Ceremony, because in Curtis about Ceremony came out, I was just one of the most beautiful records I've ever heard,
Right. I love their New Order's early stuff right after Joy Division. You know, really dark and brooding. It was really, but I mean that's kind of liked, still like,
Yeah, they were very down to earth. They came and see us. We played in Manchester. They came and see us, and I thought that's really good. But it turned out that Peter Hook never had any money, so he'd go down and be a roadie for so.
Yeah, and you were talking about, like the like flexi disc, that kind of stuff, and the record. What am I trying to say? What was the name of the one? I can't remember it. I've got 2 or 3 of them, but they would have a record included in like a magazine. In a magazine.
Yeah.
I know that was a neat idea.
Yeah, there's one. There was either a Joy Division or a New Order one. Used to have, don't have it now, but it was free with a magazine. That was, the flexi single was that was a great thing. Yeah, definitely. I don't know if it ran out of play. After you played it a certain amount of times, it died, but I'm not sure. But I had a few. I don't know, I've got boxes and boxes of stuff from Stella. So I've got in tapes, live tapes and stuff. So I need to go and spend some time and do all that.
I used to make the mixtape. You hear about the mixtape. I used to make left and right, and it would change every. My taste. Yeah. I mean that stuff was just, there was an influx of it, just pouring in it.
It's a great movie. Is it Submarine? There's a movie about a young couple, but that's how, because I used to always make mixtapes for my wife, my girlfriend, but that kind of focuses on that era of the cassette, which really just taping things off the radio, taping John Peel, but or making tapes up for people. They were
That's what I would do. Yeah. We had a Sunday night. It was called the Rock and Roll Alternative. Not real creative name, but that's where I would hear a lot of new stuff on there. Some of it I could care less about. It wasn't my taste, but then some of it was really, really good. About maybe 60-70% of the stuff was good. But it was just stuff he was getting from the UK mostly, this DJ.
I used to, in another band, I used to get letters from a guy, and he'd send me American fanzines and stuff. It's amazing. It's amazing, and now it's amazing people contact you out of the blue, but it's a wee bit of social history, and there's been a lot of there's a book out last week called Saints and Sinners. It's got pictures of Glasgow 79-80. Then there's another one from a guy I knew. He lives in Australia now, but I think he's also says Joseph Codd. His name was Simon Clegg, and he does loads of great pictures of Glasgow at that time, or the post-punk scene, and all the Apollo gigs, like when people came, bigger bands came. It was a vibrant scene.
Yeah. I mean, we would get all kinds of stuff. Here. Sometimes I wonder if it's like the case of the grass is always greener on the other side, because I've always been, I consider, an Anglophile. I mean, I've liked more of the British UK stuff, than local. I guess it's what you're used to, and then you're always like opening up to hear other stuff. It's like what's coming from across the ocean. It seems like I don't know. To me, it's a lot more heart and a lot more soul that was in the music. From your end of the world. That what I was hearing here. Maybe that's changed some, but.
Well, I think you can get into a particular style, or you know, I've been a drummer and been in different bands. It's a great thing because you pick up influences for other people in the bands, you know. So yeah, like, I became a real big fan of Jack Bell, Belgian singer-songwriter, and there was a program on Radio 4 yesterday talking about one of his songs. There's a person was talking, quite a well-known politician, talking about how he was getting a lift from a Belgian lorry driver, and it came on the radio that Jack Bell had died, and the lorry driver was crying, you know. That's why he started listening to it. So I was in a band, and one of the guys in the band was a big fan, and I picked it up. And so my daughter lives in Brussels now, and every time I go over, I go to the Jack Bell Museum, and you know, so
really.
Probably some of the Bowie stuff. Bowie did a couple of stuff. So that, you know, so another bands have been in the current band. They've kind of got me going to see Arcade Courts. Going to see them, American band Arcade Courts from New York. Going to see them on Wednesday. So I've been quite lucky being a drummer and meeting lots of. I've been then my second band. Gary and Alec were really into blues and country stuff, so that came another aspect of stuff I listened to, you know. So I'm kind of a big rockabilly fan as well. So yeah, so
you like a lot of
I kind of steer away from the commercial things, kind of things, you know. But some of the stuff I got listened to then, and it's fantastic. Don't you know, Sonny Terry and Brownie McGee were like the blues, a blind guy, you know, harmonica.
Right.
We actually played at a party in Glasgow once, and you could get a bootleg of that, you know. So it's like, wow, you know. So
yeah.
So it's good when you get into a style, but I'll listen to all sorts. You know, I do.
Yeah, I do too. What does your what does your daughter think of positive noise?
Well, my youngest has got a tattoo, and it's a bit. I'm quite strong with that. My girls, they love them. They love them, and so the last gig I played was before lockdown. Our pals came, our friends came. So it's a bit of being a dad, you know, because you've got that there. You know, it's a bit underground because it's been on YouTube and a bit less known. But yeah, they're fans.
Yeah, I find that's probably a good way to bridge that generation gap when you're making music. It's not like you're trying to say, hey, you know, I want you to listen to this old stuff, you know.
Yeah.
But because you made it or you're a part of it, it's like they're a little bit more inclined to listen to.
Yeah, and my daughter's so she's at Primavera, the big music festival in Barcelona this weekend.
Oh, okay.
So she's a huge fan of people like Johnny Mitchell and all that as well, but she got me into Lorde, Lorde, Lorde. They're a chart singer, New Zealand. So I've got this video of her Becky's on someone's shoulder swinging away. But that's a bit through car journeys. Some of the music she plays is amazing. Russian techno bands, Hong Kong punk bands, they're amazing stuff. So all these Hong Kong girl punk bands stuff. So she just, where do you find all this stuff, Rebecca? You know, so. But it's a great car journeys. They're going holiday and things. She'll always have her tape on, and so.
You'd be surprised at all the new music out there. You'd be surprised, you know.
Yeah. I still go and see young bands. So I've got friends, daughter's friends in bands. So I'll go and see them. You know. And it's interesting for them. So the difficult for bands now. So when you talked about tours earlier, bands did. So bands went on tour, they lost money. It was to sell albums. Now bands go on tour to make money and sell T-shirts, you know.
Yeah.
That kind of thing, books, records. So it's really hard. Whereas like we get signed and got like £500,000 deal when I was 19, you know, you know, it's all about.
Right.
So we were in Richard Branson's boat once, and he had a barge in London with Nicky Tesco for the members. And we're thinking, why we bought these trench coats and we're walking out with the wind.
I think I still have a trench coat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
do.
boom laden look.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I had the look in the 80s. What about comparing back, in the 80s when you guys were recording and and touring and the band was together, and then today the music scene and how today it's people can make their own stuff. I mean, in a home studio.
Mhm.
How do you see that the evolution, I guess, of music?
Well,
Is it a good thing? You think it's a good thing, or?
I think it's a great thing. I think so. The gig we did last night, it's a rehearsal place for we hired the PA. It would have filled a stadium the size of the PA. It's huge. But I've played a couple of gigs and been at a few. The mixing desk is on an iPad, and the speakers are smaller. The last time I recorded, you play a click track now, but you're moving. You've got two computers, you just cut and paste them. So that bar's absolutely tight. That's maybe a wee bit slacker, so you just cut that one and put it there. So, but some of it's wonderful. There's I think Billie Eilish recorded an album on their own stuff, and I think that a lot of that's really great. But record companies will basically exploit that. But it's kind of good. Some of the quality is dreadful. It makes it hard to believe it's true. But a lot of the recordings I've done recently, really small studios. You don't need big thing anymore. And I was in a band a while ago. We just did covers, but they'd recorded some of their own stuff, and they recorded it all on a laptop. Drums on it, they did mics and did that. So last night was a bit strange having all these mics on, and it was like a bit kind of heavy metal type sound guys,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So the next one we've got it's a guy from a band called the Arab Start from Scotland who's going to be doing the sounds. So that'll be okay.
Yeah. The one thing I'm not into is the tribute bands. I don't. The way I look at it is if you can't see the original, maybe then you missed the boat. I'm sorry. If you didn't see them at the time, it's too late. We're not going to have some guys that maybe they sound the same, but it's not the same. In my mind. But it's huge. Everywhere you look. I mean,
everywhere.
Here in England, you look at the concert, venues, and they're all tribute bands. Not the original.
I played with a covers band for a while, and it was good. We did a lot of Bowie and song stuff, but what really happened, I think you could see that covers band, you need to be a particular band, or you had your, we were trying to get a covers band because of this charity event that called, they were the Dirty Harrys, like the Blondie tribute. But I was on stage once for a Johnny Cash tribute. That's a long story. That's a night out. They had a woman going about like and I've been to see that a couple of tribute bands, but it's not the same, But,
And what blows my mind is that people will pay top dollar to go see these covers, tribute bands, and it's like, what is there like some need that you've got to go to a concert? You can't just listen in your home, It's at Spotify or MP4 or CDs, whatever. You've got to go to a concert, even if it's not the same band. Got to have that experience.
To go to a rehearsal studio, the rehearsal studio we go to, there's maybe about 10 studios in it, and 8 out of 10 bands are tributes, and posters advertising their own, not great, but there's like a lot of good young bands in the still. So, but and one of the class band called Humour I quite like. and a Leeds band called, I think they're Cheap Beef, quite good, quite. So my daughter keeps me, so she keeps me. They both keep me up to date with stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. What was I going to ask you? Okay, so the groups that you played in since Positive Noise, talk about them a little bit. I guess you could talk about.
Yeah, well, the first one was a band called Rhythm System. I'd been helping out. They never that helped. It's a good thing to be a drummer and play with lots of bands because you can't really practice in the house because it's a bit noisy. So after Positive Noise, I started doing a bit with them. We recorded. We never ever. We've got a lot of stuff's on YouTube now. For me from the band. That one. So I would regard us as being the unluckiest band in the world. We had a gig in Dingwall, so we signed, and then all our equipment gets stolen that weekend. But some of the gigs were great. So I still go out with them. Still go for dinner every 6 months or so, and so that's the one that got into that well and Billy and all that. Then the other one was the Henry Brothers, was still with one of the guys. There's three. We used to go busking in Glasgow, and then end up with a 4-piece, a 5-piece, a 6-piece, and did a lot of television stuff, and festivals and things. So that was good for a few years. Then after that, just playing with friends and different bands, and then the last few years, started going in touch. They said there's some songs that I want to play, so that's been lovely. It's just a great group of people. Great. So it's like I just feel very lucky. That's very, and I just feel like playing great songs and rehearsing and writing music. So yeah, and every when you get some of the new songs, I think probably the best I've played on, which is good.
Really?
Yeah. So we're Restricted Code. We've got one record out. We're relaunching that, but I got a lot of radio play, and then we've written a few, so we're going to record again maybe in September.
Okay.
And just do a couple of months a year. We'd like to get a festival.
Yeah.
But the good thing is Tom in the band. Tom's an author in wine critic, quite a famous wine critic. So he's quite busy doing a lot of that. But he's got all the band stuff on Spotify. He's really good at all the advertising and publicity stuff. So it's just guys to come up with great songs. So yeah, but they could have been my first band.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Does it seem like how many years ago is that?
43, I think. Wow. That's when Russell got in touch a couple of years ago because it was the 40th anniversary. That's when we started. We'll try and get tapes and get the album re-released. And the other thing, the first album, there's a tape of that, and we always think it's a better production. So the final mix, we're never really happy with the final mix. So still get that. So so I need to kind of push people a bit, to go into that.
Oh yeah.
So that was
Oh wow! Look at that!
Good. I've got this was they were in the face. It's better.
Remember that?
Yeah, that was a good one. Found the way. Track that one down.
Yeah, look at that.
I don't think that.
And it was and tickets were so affordable back
yeah,
then.
we made your own posters.
Now you've got to take out a loan just to go to a concert.
Well, that's the Bungalow Bar that I was talking about. That was the Bungalow Bar gig. You can see that.
Oh yeah.
That was a 4-piece.
Okay, right.
So there's a Glasgow music. The music guy Harry Papadopoulos. I don't know if you come across him, but there's a book out on him, and all the pictures of Glasgow bands. He worked for the NNE. So that's what presence it's called. Do you remember I was saying what presence?
Yes, what presence? Yes,
yeah.
Orange Juice. Yeah, and
yeah.
Yeah. What was the other song that I'm a little bit too sensitive? Yeah, that's the one that I guess I'm a little bit too sensitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
I always remember Edward walking about with his beaver hat and stuff like that. Yeah, we did a BBC programme once just in Edinburgh. They filmed that through there. Yeah. I'll maybe send you some pictures and some stuff. I've still got all the vinyl and stuff.
Oh yeah.
As I said, my future son-in-law. So they play in bands that change the name of it. The current one's Vent. They play sets that last 12 minutes. and they all do, fans all do kung fu. And they make great stuff. And so he's after all my vinyl. So
yeah.
I love all the early Cure singles and stuff like that. And, the Mekons, all those.
Oh yeah, Mekons.
The Gang of Four. I've got all them.
So. Oh yes. What was the song? Mekons.
Where were you?
Yeah.
So a Scottish. I did a gig. The first gig the band did, Fish City Code did, was in Fife in Glasgow, in Scotland, and a little arty kind of village, village hall called Leather Nights, and we played with a band called Boots for Dancing, who were an Edinburgh band. Okay. But Joe Callis, who was in the Human League, was in them at one point. So that was a good night. So their stuff was good. Yeah.
So much of that stuff. Yeah, I was just going to look that up real quick, but my computer's kind of lagging. But yeah, that's yeah. Here we go. I was going to see real. It's popping. Yes. Yeah, so where are we? Here we go. Yeah. Yeah, that's another thing I was going to say was I think this generation, I mean your generation, mine, I don't think there's that much age difference between us.
Right.
Now when we have kids, it seems like the gap may not be as large as it was like people back in the 60s and the 50s, especially growing up, because it was just so a different time. We all, experimented with different substances, and all of that growing up. And it's like, and your kids may do that too. You try to steer in the right direction, but it's like you have a lot more, it seems like, in common. There's not that disparity. The music that you played and that you liked, was progressive. I'm not saying like prog rock, but it was progressive, alternative. And it wasn't like your parents, or mine, there was a huge, bigger gap, I think. So I don't know what I'm going to say, but something. Okay, let me just, here we go, real quick. I was pulling up.
Yeah, I was going to say, you okay to finish up in 5 minutes? I've got to meet dinner.
So
second Kiev.
Here we go. The one. Okay, here it is. Come on up. Ghost of American Astronauts by Mekons. Have you heard?
Oh, right.
Yes. You familiar with that? Oh, go ahead. Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
One of the album is starting to have. It's a compilation of bands from Sheffield. Can't remember. So Music for Pleasure is one of the bands on it.
Oh yeah.
It's the first out. Pulp, Jarvis Cocker and Pulp are on it.
I've got that one. I've got one.
You got that? Yeah.
I've got one with they must be Russians. Yeah.
We were very big in Sheffield for some reason. We did the TV program on the Prince Charles about in the 60s, and they used Get Up and Go as the
right. But yeah, that's Ghost of American, and I'll tell you that the group that did a great cover of Ghost of American Astronauts, one of my favorites, Trash Can Sinatras.
Oh, from London, yeah.
From Scotland, yeah.
Yeah.
They may have relocated to America, though. I'm not. I know they were.
The singer's the brother of Eddie Reader, the singer Eddie Reader, who was in.
Yes.
Who's quite a well-known Scottish singer.
Yes.
She was in The Sign Perfect.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, they're from Irvine. They're great. The albums. I'm sure that they re-recorded recently. I don't know where they stay. The Blue Nile was the other kind of one.
Blue Nile, yeah.
I was talking about them the other day. They kind of came from nowhere.
Right.
There's a small factory, Lynn Product makes, produced an album and funded it.
Yes.
A small business kind of record makes hi-fis and things like that. But they kind of came from that really. That was more of an album.
There was a story about that with the Lynn drumming too.
Yeah.
With them, and they didn't really have a lot of experience, but there's a real interesting documentary on Blue Nile.
And that was I was talking about that with Frank in the band last night, because they said they watched it. But the guy that produced it is a guy called Bernard Rudden, who was around the time of that he was a band called Melodrama. Never ever came, but he actually produced the documentary. And Frank was quite a friendly guy with him in the band, and he members for them saying, "Oh, I can't do it," and doing the documentary. So just kind of mentioned that last night, so yeah.
Oh,
we could talk for hours.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I have tons of Scottish bands. What about Lloyd Cole?
Yep.
Delamitri. Delamitri is one of my favorites too.
Yeah, they mentioned a current band on the radio program recently. They asked how they got their name. They said, "Oh, there's all these pretentious names like City Code." That's the radio. They were around for a long time, probably 3 or 4 years in different lineups before that record came out. They were around in Glasgow for early 80s anyway, and then Justin Curry. I think I just got married in 1989 when the first hit came out, because I always remember can't remember what it's called, but so they've been around for a while. Yeah. So I think every drummer in Glasgow had been in them at one point.
Oh wow! What about Mike Scott, Waterboys?
The Waterboys, they're very Springsteen, and they were. I've got the singles. I could send you them if you've got. Another Pretty Face was the band.
Okay.
Yeah, they were from Ayrshire. He was from Ayrshire. It's quite a. All the boys love Carrie. That was a single. There was a point when we were being managed with Bruce Findlay before we could say we might have went to that label and they were going to part of that. It didn't come, but then the Waterboy stuff just blew out the water. Fistman's Blues and stuff. Amazing. And I think that the last album, I heard them on the radio talk, but there must have been about 30 songs on it. It was loads and loads of songs.
Oh yeah. They have several like re-releases and like best of and and alternate versions and things like that.
Yeah.
Kind of things like, what was the other? You mentioned the Skids earlier, right?
Yeah. So the place they played last night was the home of the Skids, Dunfermline, which is now a city. That was a.
The two offshoots, Big Country and Armory Show.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
The Armory Show was really hard to find material for, but Cherry Red did release After the Flood. I believe that's
right. That was his band after. Richard Jobson was amazing. Couldn't understand the word they said at that.
Yeah, right.
I've mellowed up. And Stuart Adamson, I knew really well, knew quite well at that time. We were kind of recording in London once, went together for a beer and stuff with him. But then there's a guy I was at school with, joined the Skids, Russell Webb, joined the Skids at one point. They one of my favourites, the Irish Scottish band. I saw the first song supporting the Stranglers in Glasgow.
The Stranglers.
And the Stranglers had previous time in Glasgow had fans, including me, had stormed the stage. We'd stormed the stage. And so all the councillors from Glasgow were at the gig and they all had to behave themselves. That was just,
I think I can never understand how they went from that punk aggressive stuff to European female. I mean, it's like to change that drastically. I've never heard of a band doing that. They had that all along, you know. There was hints of that, but just to overnight, I mean, it's just like wow, two different bands.
Yeah.
But how about some of the Dream stuff, like Cocteau Twins?
Yeah, they were from Falkirk, I think. Grangemouth or Falkirk, but I saw them supporting the birthday party once. And
Nick Cave,
yeah, the magazine basically was playing them, but I didn't think anything much of them. And then I heard them on. There's no keyboards. It was just a live band with three people in them. Didn't think much. Then when you hear the stuff comes out, you're like, wow, where did that come from? You know? It's just when you mentioned them, Jesus and the Mary Chain, remember that? So my second band played with them.
Yes.
They studied nothing but we ended up in a fight with them.
Oh, really? they had
still got the poster.
Yeah, they have quite the attitude. But wouldn't they play with their backs to the audience?
Yeah, it was the very Velvet Underground, didn't it? So I heard a track last week. It was Jesus and the Mary Chain, someone else. I've never heard of it. Really, I'm not a huge fan, but I don't know who the artist was. I thought it was great. So we've got Radio 6 in Scotland is came about 10, 15 years or longer than that, maybe now. It's almost like one PO on the radio now. So it's all the indie bands and all that stuff. So that's been brilliant, but that's where I got most stuff. Tom Robinson does a show on Sunday nights, which is great. Guy Gaff from Elbow does one as well on a Saturday, Sunday. But they tend to be, I'll be listening at home a bit. Most of them you're driving home from work and you're listening to stuff. That's where I'll pick up new bands and things, or from friends. But yeah, they were from East Kilbride, which is outside Glasgow. I could go through millions of well, probably Aztec Camera would be looking at bands like that. He wrote beautiful songs, you know.
Yeah, great guitars. I remember one of the first 12 inches I got was Walk Out to Winter.
Yeah.
That guitar in that is just like, and the
extended
version.
So the first gig we played, they played the same venue the following night, but they were called, I think they made me something like Useful Blue. They weren't called that Camera. Then they changed their name.
Yeah, he seems like he's a pretty level-headed kind of guy, you know.
Yeah.
He was very young when they started. I know that. Yeah.
I'm going to have to go and make dinner now. So is that okay?
Oh, that's fine. We're running down anyway. Yeah, and I need to grab something to eat. It's like my hey, we've gone almost an hour and a half. You know.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a good little talk, good little chat. So
we'll keep in touch. I'll look out. I've all these singles and the restricted code stuff. You listen to that, the other stuff as well. And you want to talk to them.
Yeah. And you know what? Go ahead.
The drummer I replaced, a guy called Stephen Maroney, who was in Altered Images for a while. He wrote Mbop, the Hanson song. He wrote that.
Okay.
You know.
Hey, I forgot to mention I have Scottish heritage.
All right.
German. My mom's German.
Right.
Heritage, and then my dad thought was Irish, but I did some research, genealogy, and it's more Scotch Irish.
Right.
More Scottish. So I have that, maybe that's part of, it's in my blood too. Why I
Right.
like so much Scottish music. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, my daughter's boss in Brussels, she works in the European Union, and so in Scotland House, and their boss has a encyclopedia knowledge of indie music, apparently.
Oh wow, wow.
So she said, when she said who band they played in, she said, oh, so your dad must be like Gaff. Oh, Les Gaff, Les Gaff. So yeah, so that was amazing.
Yeah,
No, she knew more about me than I knew.
that's funny. That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I would shake your hand. I mean, I can
Right.
put my hand up here like this, pretending we're shaking. But yeah, it's been really a pleasure, Les, and I'm glad we hooked up. I'm glad we met. You know, and thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
It's been I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
well, I'm really inspired to push yet again to get the vinyl onto
Yeah,
Spotify or whatever.
yeah. And who knows, someday maybe stuff will be released. I know I did get I'll say this real quick,
Mhm.
a compilation. I got a Modern Eon. I don't know if you remember that.
Yep.
And Positive Noise. Some guy on the internet was putting these together. He was just recording from vinyl,
Right.
but it's a real good quality. And this was a few years ago. So I got
Yeah.
most of Change of Heart and most of the material on CD. So, but it would still be nice to have like official,
Yeah. I've got it in a cassette tape somewhere. I don't know what it is.
All right.
So that's one of my tasks, is to fit. I've got a huge cellar with all my gear in it, but fill all the stuff.
Yeah.
But I'll keep in touch.
All right. Yeah.
I find things that singles you might think you might like.
Oh yes, exactly. Exactly. All right. Thank you, Les.
Thank you.
All right.